Now we're recording. Use your instructors as much as possible, right? So to get started, happy Full Sail Friday. How many Full Sail Friday people do we have? Where'd your Full Sail polo go? Armada. Cool, yeah. Full Sail Friday we got. Yeah, what do you get? What do you got? What? Oh, you got one of the originals. Yeah, the pirate ship, which made more sense because it would probably have a full sail on it, whereas an airplane, we don't know. It does look cooler though. I think the airplane looks a little more up to date and it makes a better emblem. But other than that, all right. So a couple things. I got this really cool bedtime storybook. A is for asteroids, Z is for zombies, a bedtime book about the coming apocalypse. I thought that was pretty interesting. It is definitely not for children. It talks about, let's see, what do we got here? Let's see if there's a good one. E is for extraterrestrial, invaders from space. They'll probe you from your butthole up to your face. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It talks about dinosaurs and how we've killed the earth with chemicals and all kinds of stuff. I thought that was it. I had to bring it in and say these books are cool. They exist. I got it as a gift. It showed up in a box of stuff from my family, my mother-in-law, father-in-law. They just, yeah. But it's cool. There it is. Yes, perfect little book. I was like, oh, a new book to read at bedtime. No, not at all. So that was interesting. The other thing I said I'd bring in would be my costume stuff. So I have that stuff here. You're more than welcome to look at it. This was actually welded by me. This is an old Freon tank and a box fan with an old bicycle helmet put inside of it. It does fit. It's a little heavy, but this was my Gladiator helmet and turned into a friend of mine when we did the Marauders. He wore that. So that's pretty cool. I enjoyed it. If you touch it, though, it is rusty and filled with tetanus, so be careful. This was the sword. The sword I made. Now, there was a day I was able to walk around downtown with this and not get yelled at in the one. I mean, that is a spike, and this is a 1/4-inch steel, right? So the design of this sword, it's a 3-strike sword. Basically, 3 strikes, you're out. No, it's meant to slice, come back around, hook, pull them down, and then stab them in the head, right? That's what it's for. But the reason I tell you that is, I was like, I need a sword that looks cool, but also looks believable. Let me figure out what kind of sword I want and how I would use it, and that got me to the design, right? I was able to put that together. It's a little heavy. I need to drill more holes. And actually, I was thinking about putting a blade on it and hardening up the blade so I can actually use it as a machete, because right now it's just too heavy and probably break my wrist. But that was fun. You know, I don't know how to weld. I just know that when you put 2 pieces of metal together and you click the welding thing, it flashes really bright and it sticks the metal together. So that's pretty good. Here's my leg plate. This was fun. This is actually somebody donated a Harley exhaust pipe for me. And then there is this is a wheel adjuster from a lawnmower, right? And then it's a little piece of tire, just a little extra. This is from an ATV. I put that tire up there, and then some old belts. I think I bought every belt from leather belt or imitation leather belt from what's that place? Salvation Army and all that. But that was my leg plate. It was kind of fun. Again, it's got the chain that slaps when you walk, so it kind of sounds a little cooler. But you know. And again, I was like, you know, I want to bring this up because I think there's quite a bit of people that want to be a designer. You want to be designers, you want to build stuff. And I have this one friend, Brent Gobbets. His name is Clutch. He's part of the 501st. And he's really into costuming. And he was the first one that really opened up my eyes to just make it work. And basically, I was preparing for this costume that you see in the background right there. I don't know if you can really see that, but it's my Umbrella Corps soldier, and it's got a big backpack. And I was like, I need to build a backpack for this because I want to have the breathing mask, something like that. And he goes, all right, let's go to Lowe's or Home Depot. We went there, and he just starts putting stuff in the basket. And he goes, Trust me. Does that look cool? Cool. All right, that's a sprinkler head. Let's get that. And all right, that's a pressure washer nozzle. Let's get that. And then he goes, all right, let's go to the back of the store because I don't want you to do this in where everybody is. And he just starts putting stuff on the ground. And he's like, well, that looks like that would be cool with this. And that air filter might be nice on the side here. We can use, it's got a, like almost looks like an antenna or some sort of sensing device. And that's just a pressure washer nozzle, right? And then it's got all these cool things on it that make it feel like it can do what it's supposed to do, but it's all made out of these random parts and pieces. So that was a lot of fun, putting that together. And then of course, that was pre this stuff. I hate this plate. It's freaking heavy. And it's falling apart with age. Because now it all just sits in my attic. Once you have the children, you know, you can't walk around with sharp, pointy things off your shoulders. But, you know, this is my arm plate. It's made of dirt bike motorcycle, dirt bike tires and an ATV tire. So you've got all of this here with finger plate, so you can wear it. And then, of course, the shoulder plate, which is an ATV tire with spark plugs on it. And the finishing touches, the brake caliper. You know, again, when I first made it, first rendition, it didn't have as many spark plugs, and people were like, hey, you need more spark plugs. I said, you're right. Let me go make more spark plugs. God, this thing is painful to wear, but it's like that. You put it on your arm, and now you've got a really heavily armored arm to wear and take a strike with, right? But if you look at gladiator armor, this is how the mid-armored gladiators, what they would wear. Theirs would be leather or metal, and it would be scaled, and there would be a protecting arm and an attacking arm. So again, studying gladiators helped me design and figure out what I want. And we got some old belts. And I actually used a 3D model of a gladiator to figure out how to hold it onto my body, which is where this little ring came in. And then the chain, just because it looks more apocalyptic, and that goes around, you know, and it holds on. It's actually pretty comfortable. You have to wear an arm cover, otherwise it cuts you. But we got some old ammo packs on the back. These are old, like World War II, really vintagey kind of thing. Again, something you would find. But this thing is, it's got to be at least 15, 20 pounds. But it's just, you know, it's cool, right? And just walking around, and I have a shield. It's got a big spike on the front of it. And we're just like pushing people out of the way. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. But yeah, you know, design, it's fun. If you know, build yourself a costume. And I'm always a fan of cheap and effective. And this was cheap and effective to build because I was able to, post-apocalyptic, what a better genre could you pick? I mean, you could just find license plates and all kinds of stuff. I have old beat up motorcycle riding boots. Just throw some duct tape on them. Cover yourself. This is covered with, if you touch any of this stuff, you might get dirty. This has got concrete dust on it and sawdust to feel a little bit more authentic. Yeah, we rolled around in dirt, and we got ourselves all messy when we went downtown, but or when we did the costume contest here as a group, which was fun, right? But again, you know, design, think about it, have a good time, build something. We need to do, computers are great, they are awesome. You got to do things with your hands. You've got to build things, tinker, use your hands, hand-eye coordination. RCs, again, I love it. You got these little tiny things, you're trying to figure it out, you're re-gearing this, you're adjusting that, something breaks, you got to fix it. Building things, doing that kind of stuff is great exercise. It helps your design aspect, it helps your, building this is just the same kind of thought process as building something in Maya. I'm thinking about, how do I need it to work, what do I need to do, is this piece going to fit with that piece? And you start thinking about using tools in a way that they're not built to, or made to be used, but it works. Right? That's what I would recommend. Okay, build something fun. This thing's getting heavy. I'm gonna put it down. I'll hold it. But you know, again, after class, if you want to check it out, you can. My hands are all dirty. But yeah, I mean, fun stuff. Does anybody do costuming? Yeah, a little bit. 3D printing. George, I don't know if you know. See, he was in Portfolio 3. Probably talks all about his painting shoes and airbrushing and all his printing and stuff like that. He's kind of one of those, I'm going to do business all the time kind of people. But yeah, I mean, he's doing that Scorpion, or no, he said it was Sub-Zero, but I think it's a Scorpion. He's printing the Mortal Kombat. He's printing the thing. He's got the mask. He printed all that out. Printing has really, really revolutionized costuming, because I can go home, model anything that I need for a costume and print it out. When I was doing this stuff, 3D printers weren't around. I mean, you had MakerBot, but nobody wanted to pay $6,000, $7,000 for a printer. Now you can get it for a couple $100 and they do just as good of a job if you know what you're doing. So all of this I had to fabricate by hand, a lot of grinding and everything, which also limited my ability to build things. I didn't know how to cast. I didn't know how to, you know, sculpt and then cast it and then silicone mold. Thank you for that. You know, but I knew how to put things together, and hey, that looks cool. Let me use half of that. Let me cut this. Let me cut that, and then make it work. And if you look at some of these Star Wars replica blasters and things, it's plumbing parts. You see a lot of plumbing parts put together in a way that looks like this big giant stormtrooper blaster. Right? I've got one of those in my attic, something melted by now. But it's really cool to look at that stuff and see how it's made. So if you're not costuming, start, because it's a lot of fun, gets the mental juices flowing, gets you kind of going with all of that, and I think it's a lot of fun. And so now you know, right? This is the kind of stuff you should start making for our Halloween get together, right? I think you all should still be here around Halloween next year, right? Or not really? Ooh, it's gonna be close. I don't really mean this, but fail some classes so you can be here. No, I'm just kidding. Right, so you're gonna wanna, you know, if you are around Halloween, it'd be cool if we had a big giant, because I'm gonna try and wear all this again, a big giant Desert Marauder group to walk around and just be cool, you know, kind of thing. Yeah, probably now. You know what's funny, when I wore that costume, this one down here, when I wore that downtown, I brought like right now, it's got the orange tip on it, but the bullets look real. This is I can't remember what the name of the gun is. Either way, though, I carried my scar, my airsoft scar down there, and nobody said a word. Right? I had my gun on my hip, which was just like a little 9mm airsoft gun, and nobody said a word. Oh, how times have changed. Can you imagine? I came to campus in that costume with my scar. Right? If you don't know what a scar is, it's kind of like war, but cooler looking, I think. Left 4 Dead 2, they had the scar as one of the weapons you can get. 3-round burst there. But, you know, nobody said anything. Here's this guy in this all black, almost looks like a SWAT gear with hazard. You know, I got the breather and the face mask and everything. I'm just running towards the campus. Nobody said a word. Everyone's like, that's cool. Awesome for Halloween. Gary Jones shook my hand. Oh, so much fun to get dressed up for Halloween. Now, I don't even think I would make it from my car. I'd probably get tackled by somebody, whether it be a good Samaritan or security if they ever got over here. We know how long it takes them to unlock doors, but so, you know, it's different times, yeah. Gotta watch out for that. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, cool, you know. So that was my fun thing for today. I was gonna read the book, but I am actually tight on time because we're gonna go through this stuff. And so, any questions about that? Any questions about class? If you are going to be grinding metal, wear eye protection. A piece of metal in your eye, not good. It's not good. Well, if you're welding, yes. Well, I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to that, because I just want to get it done. So I was welding with plastic pressure mats on the floor in a wooden shed with on. You get a piece of hot. Yeah. Please tell me you weren't wearing any jewelry. Probably wearing all kinds of stuff. Okay, I mean, don't wear any like jewelry. Yeah. You'll want a leather front. I do have that, but half the time I push it to the side, and I'll wear one glove so I can have better control. I'm welding metals you should never weld. Galvanized, all kinds of stuff. Painted metal, so those fumes just Yeah, good for my lungs, you know, all that good stuff. Yeah. You know how to weld?
My dad was a welder trade, so.
Okay.
And I hear a lot.
Yeah, everybody was like, oh, this is where that you probably might have heard bird ship welds, right? I don't know if he's ever, this is bird ship welds, right? I ground them down to look cool, kind of, and then I made sure that everything was the same. So, man, that thing is rusty. I gotta stop. That's what. But you gotta get your hands dirty once in a while, right? Right. Cool. So, no, any questions about 3D? Everybody's doing good. Resurfacing is going good. We did have a question about UVs. As far as the normal maps, the seams are really hard to see. I'm going to try and figure out where that setting is. Adam knows exactly where it is, and I can find it if I dig for enough time. But there's a setting where you change the way that it's running, and you have to change it down to raw, and it will fix it. But for submission, I don't care if it's looking a little, as long as it's applied as normal mapping material, and I open it up and I see your normal maps load when I hit the 6 key, we are fine. But there is a setting that has changed throughout the years. And again, because I keep comping my preferences, it keeps bringing that up. We'll try and take a look at it. I'll see if I can't dig it up really quickly and tell you what that is, kind of deal. You got a question? Wonky sometimes? How so? What? So you do it and sometimes it maps and then sometimes it doesn't actually do the procedure? Okay. As far as what's causing that, if you're not changing anything, it's probably like with mine, it just stopped rendering. I was rendering these characters for example images, and it just stopped rendering until I shut it down, brought it back up, started rendering again. I don't know if that would be it, if you're doing a lot of stuff in between, but as long, I mean, if everything's staying the same, there's nothing that should be causing it to work sometimes and not work other times. Because if it works, it should work, unless the program has, Maya's been always terrible with flushing RAM, so that's why it crashes after being in it for a while. It's always a good idea, you know, shut it down, start it back up every couple hours. Right? Some people do it every half hour, some people do it every hour. I'm not that disciplined. I'll usually go several hours and then shut it down and restart it. But try that. But if it happens and you haven't changed anything, send me the file or take a video of it not doing what it is. And I want to see if there's a warning, right? So remember, everyone, that you can go into your script editor and you can see the warnings that it's telling you, that kind of stuff, just to make sure that it's not telling you exactly what's going on, right? That girl that was my captured zombie, I made that bite mask for her, and I held her on a chain. Again, probably not something I can do now. And she was just going after people like crazy, and I'd have to hold her back. And she did all this beautiful makeup and looked freaky. She almost looked like a possessed, almost like what's that movie? Exorcist. But then didn't do anything to her legs. So you got all this tan leg and then blood dripping and peeled skin, and I'm like, way to drop the ball, right? Okay, so going into your script editor, if anything does not work, this is always the first place I'm gonna go. Echo all commands, right? Usually turn that on. And if that doesn't give you a warning, you'll see the red flash down there. If you can catch it, look at it, see what it's telling you. Or again, if you're not seeing that, just go to your script editor down there, little bits, and then you'll be able to see. You might have to scroll a little bit and go, oh, okay, warning, you know, or couldn't complete operation because of this, right, kind of deal. If you have a lot of history, I'd clear that out, you know, go through your standard steps on all your assets and go from there. So script editor would be the way to go. Let's see. The other thing that might be doing it, if you're not loading like if you save your file but you bring it up, double check your source mesh and target mesh and make sure that Those are actually, because sometimes it'll kick the source mesh. So if it doesn't have a source mesh, it might not do anything. It probably is yelling, hey, I need a source mesh, kind of deal. But that's a hard one without actually seeing it happen. I'm guessing it's probably just a hiccup with the software. Hopefully that's what it is. Right, so use that. And what else we have left to talk about? We got some hair stuff to talk about. And then the submission. And then I bid you a good day kind of thing. And we go from there. Any other questions? It was a good question. Anything else? UV question. You don't hate UVs anymore, right? You see how easy it is? Just like good. Yeah, I miss the old way. Auto mapping and then piecing everything together, moving and sewing and cutting and all that stuff. Walking around every shell, adjusting your edges visually to be the same length as what they are on the model, and then relaxing the internal shell. All that technical. Take you days to UV something instead of an hour. Yeah. Was anyone else getting polygons on their normal maps? Haha, polygons showing up in your normal. Good thing to bring that up. All right. So Taylor, it's a great question. This is a common thing. I'm going to go ahead and kill the light. Not kill. The what? Killing the lights? Yeah. Yeah, and then they'll come in and just replace them again. So, all right. So if you're getting, I'll bring up the scene. I'll bring up the scene we had the other day. We were working with that. Okay. So what's happening there? And this comes down to, I mentioned it really quick at the end of lecture, making sure that you do what to your surfaces? Soften normals, right? This killed everybody. When normal maps became a widely used thing, it happened to everybody. And everyone's like, what's going on? I get the poly. Are you talking about when you can see the poly frame on your normal map? I think is really the error that's coming up. Yes, okay. So what's happening is on your low res, and this has to go, I'm gonna go display polygons, and I'm gonna look at vertex normals, pinhead, right? And if you look, because we have softened normals, every normal has one, or every vertex has one normal, right? Just one. So attaching the map to it, easy, okay? If you harden the normals on your low res, you'll see that every vertex now has multiple normals. Why? What does a normal do? Well, we can get into the whole, well, it tells light angle and all that other stuff. And really all it's doing is it's taking information based on lighting and it's coloring the edges of the polygon next to it. So it says based on the lighting information, this corner here be 0.5 gray. You over here be 0.25 based on the light angle. So it's basically just coloring the edges of the face, right? So when you harden your normals, each corner has an independent color. That's why it needs multiple normals. So however many faces are around that vertex, that's how many normals you'll get. So on a star junction, you'll have 5. If it's a 5-point star junction, on regular junctions, you'll get 4, so on and so forth. So when I bake a normal map, what's happening is, all right, we'll make sure we can see those. Treat those as like a sword, a blade. And you're taking this texture and you're putting it down on the model and it hits those blades and it takes that section of pixels and it splits it, cuts it into 4 separate sections and then tries to tape it together on the surface. If you've ever ripped a picture and you tape it back, you can still see those tears. That's kind of what it's doing. It's getting confused at that point. And it says, I don't know what to do here. There's going to be some discrepancies. I'll do the best I can. We'll take a look at that. I'll just go ahead and bake the normals really quick. Maybe we can find that setting. I know it's in there somewhere. I will find it. All right, so we got our low res. We got our high res. Putting out a normal map, throwing it to the desktop, tangent space, awesome. Common outputs, perfect. Everything's all set up from before, and we will go ahead and bake that through. I've seen people have this error and then try and smudge it out and blur it out in Photoshop, and then with like this blurry wireframe on there. I do recommend, if you are running into problems on your normal map, if it's a small little dark area or something got pixelated, if it's a small area here or there, you just take it into Photoshop and you smudge it a little bit, right? Or clone and stamp. And that's a quick fix for small discrepancies. For big stuff, it's just not going to work, right? Let's see what this thing does. I forgot my water today. Think it's safe to drink that one that's been there all month? That's, no, not good. Probably a bad idea. Yeah. That's okay. And sorry, I'm all looking jacked up in the camera there, but hurt my neck again. Doing this. Yeah. You're welcome, 40s. Right? You get hurt for no reason. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got. We're going to go ahead and take the low res there. Let's hide those. We don't need to see those normals anymore. Vertex normals, turn those off. We'll hit the 6 key. There we go. And it looks okay from a distance. From a distance. But now you look there and you can see wireframe. And you will see this on the normal map itself. Wireframe. Okay. It kind of looks pillowed or like quilted. You know, and it's because of the normals. It's getting confused. How do I blend this normal information? I'm trying to literally put a normal map on every individual face, and that doesn't work, right? So I'm just going to overwrite that file. I'll take the low res. We're going to go ahead and just perfect. It's not, so annoying. So annoying. There we go. Soften edge. Right now, even on soften edge, this is super crazy. It looks even worse. Right? It kind of looks like a quilted person. Not terrible. But I'm going to go ahead and bake it again. Everything is fine. It's just going to go ahead and overwrite my file. I wonder if it's going to have a problem that it's actually being previewed. Probably not, though. This is just a temporary load. But it's going to go ahead and it's going to fix that up. It should reconnect, rebuild. I might have to update. I don't know. But no, again, taking its time, doing its thing. Now there is a video, the normal mapping basics video. It's a short one. That's the one I did really quickly. It's like I think I've got like a golf ball type sphere. It'll talk about this in that video. So if you're struggling after this, please watch that. It'll talk about how to fix it, things to think about. The only thing is it's an older video. So it does talk about freezing transforms on your low res because it used to work with transforms. Now it's not too bad. Look at that, fixed it up. Nice and clean. Okay, now the normal map does have some discrepancies because the mouth here is connected and it's overlapped. It's struggling with what to do around the lip line. This is where I would just simply open this into Photoshop. And this is where my computer crashes. It's like, no Photoshop. Oh, thank you. Okay. Come on. There we go. Right, and you can see there's that problem there. We have the problem here. And oh, look at that. I must not have, I forgot to do what? See that little grid? You can see it more when I move. See that grid? What is that? It was Wednesday we talked about this. Wednesday. Well, the base mesh I did, that's the low res. What about the high res? High res, okay, cool, all right. The source mesh, yeah, the high res, good. All right, sorry, you confused me. I did not smooth normals on the high res surface. Now, I do have a blurring happening. You saw my filter size, which is your amount of blur. I've got a medium quality with a filter size of 4. So it is blurring that information a little bit, but I can still tell, right? Make sure you do that, because if I see that in the normal map, I'll be like, oh, what's going on there? That's a problem, okay? But let's go ahead and just fix something like the ear. I'll do the ear, one of these. I'm just going to grab smudge. Now, fixing the ear this way, it's going to work for this model because I don't have the ear mesh there. So if there's a seam on the ear, well, guess what? I'm just going to smudge my seam, and it's going to become more visible. Now, this is the back of the ear, so it's not really terrible. I might be able to fix it up once the whole model is there. But it is something to think about. But that'll take care of that. And let's go ahead and do half of the lip shape here, and I'll leave the other half kind of messed up. So why I like to use the smudge is I can smudge in some of the standard colors that are around that area and kind of keep the normal map roughly the same in that zone. And you might have to zoom in, but there is, no. You can see this dead area. There's just, it's a purple, it's all the colors combined, right? So I want to push all my information into that area. So again, the smudge tool, I'm just gonna push down into that zone. Now, if you're gonna see, this is for us, right? But if you're gonna see this area, don't do what I'm doing. It's not gonna work. You might need to play around with your settings a little bit more if it's going to be a usable asset. But for now, and you can actually smudge them away. I don't think you should make a infomercial with smudge away. It's nothing more than a. Whatever happened to Slap Chop guy? Didn't he get like arrested for something? Remember Slap Chop? The song? Slap Chop, you're gonna love. You guys live under rocks? What's going on? Oh, okay, yeah, all right, I guess. I think that video hit YouTube, and people remixed it into dance songs. So, you know, if you watch it, you're gonna be like, ah, and then you're gonna be singing it too. You're gonna sing one line. I'm not gonna tell you what that line is, but you're gonna be singing one of those lines. So I'm just kind of smudging through. I'm gonna smudge this one out. I'm gonna kind of smudge this through the corner of the mouth. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and just save it. Remember, I didn't do the other side, so we're still gonna see that discrepancy on the one side, but this side here should be nice and cleaned up. It's worth noting right now, when do you use a normal map versus another type of map? I think people, they learn normal maps first, or they see that, oh wow, I can take a high res and just bake it in there. By doing something that I'm doing now, I'm destroying what? I'm destroying my integrity. So if there was all kinds of lip line creases in there, I've just blurred them all out. I've got destroyed, or it's going to take me a lot longer if I can't get it to bake the way I need it to bake. So what would be better? What would be a better map to use for lip lines or pores or fine lines and wrinkles? Would you use a normal map? Or which one? Displacement map for larger wrinkle forms, things that are going to deform. And then if you're going to go into the fine lines and wrinkles, I'd probably go with bump map, because you can stack them, keep them away from each other, stack them up, adjust height on either one, and go from there. So normal maps tend to get overused, and what happens is you blur it to put it on there. It's there to sell the illusion of more geometry, to give you a little cleaner shape look, but it's not really there for details. When do we use it for details? In video games. But we're doing more film. We're going to want the best maps, and think about what maps to use. Don't just use the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and save that out. We're going to go into here. Come on. Nope. Oh, perfect. Yep. Yep. There we go. I don't think it did anything. So we're going to go in there and you might have to go through your hypergraph, but you might also be able to get to it through. If you don't have a lot of history, this is a little faster sometimes, but I have quite a bit of history there. Okay. So I'm going to go into Lambert, whatever it is, bump mapping. And then you'll see that normal map. Just reload it. It already knows where to find it. So just reloading it loads the new version. If you need to resource, if you've moved the position of that file for submission, or you've renamed it, that's the #1 killer for submissions when it comes to the normal mapping, is someone names it, test normal map, this better work, I hate this. And it sources that, so I can see what the name is. It sources it, and I will check here if it doesn't load. But then they submit it named what it needs to be named for submission, and they don't resource the file. Kills it every time. Kills it, right? The other thing that'll kill it is the use of your own folder structure. We're going to do a little bit of a trick to ease my grading and to also help you out with not submitting giant folders, right? So if you submit a scene directory, every time I load a file, I have to go in and set my project to your project. That sucks after about 15 times of doing it. I grade 60 some files every week, right? I think it's actually 40. I think I'm at 70 this term. Next month, they gave me 3DF too. So it'll be over 100. Yes. But it'll be fun to go back to 3DF because anything you do in the computer, you're a god to them. You're just like, oh, watch this, smooth. And they love it. So I'll be, going through that, but I don't want to be setting up projects. So what we're going to do is a little trick I learned working on this game project. And they said, hey, you know what? We just go ahead and put the file, the scene file, and then the texture files in the same folder and source them that way. And it doesn't matter whatever computer you put it on, it'll load them. I was like, it works for me. I don't need other folders. And I still get people that would source images folder. They'll submit scene directories, and it never opens. I hit the 6 key, their file doesn't load automatically, and it never works. Best way to check, make your submission file, give it to somebody, and say, can you open this? Open it on your computer. They should be able to just hit the 6 key and it'll load. That's how you know you did it right, okay? I just wanted to talk about that because you are graded on application of the map, not just that you made it, but that it actually works in your scene without me having to push a bunch of buttons, right? But let's take a look at our fix. Hey, that looked pretty good. Look at the lip no longer has all, this side's all busted up. But this side over here, nice and clean. Smudge worked out fine. We look over here, we don't see that black spot above the ear. Over here, we do see it, right? But I just want to show you how easy it is to kind of fix that stuff up, right? You get in there, you do a little bit of smudging, you do a little bit of clone and stamp, you can fix it. Or you can fight the settings for 3 or 4 hours. You tell me what's going to be more time conducive. Is that the right word? Conducive. Either way, it works for what I'm trying to say to you. Okay. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit with the normal maps. A little bit of troubleshooting there if you're running into problems. There's a couple things there that again will get you back in the right direction. And there's a little bit of an error it gives me right there. That's because the geometry is actually on the model. It was pushed up, so it is overlapping there to create the line. At that point, I would just clone and stamp or smudge the line over. Smudging will degrade the clarity of the image. So if you sample and clone and stamp, right through there, or sample the color and just paint, you can clean that up. Cool. All right. Anybody have any specific questions about hair? Perfect. It's what?
I said yes, a lot.
Okay. And they would be? I'm going to turn this off, so. How do you do it?
Tutorial, different methods to wrap the hair.
Okay, well, the hard part about hair in general is that hair, there's 500 different ways to create it. And right? So really, it comes down to you thinking about, what do I know about modeling? Let me look at the hairstyle. Never made a hairstyle like that. What am I going to do? How am I going to create that? First thing I would do is I'd go online and put how to make a pony style haircut, or how to make a crew cut, or how to make short hair, how to make scraggly hair. And you might find something. I would also encourage you to go where? Where have I told you before? Our sharp, stick it into stuff. Thumbtack, but another word. Pinterest, right? I'd go to Pinterest because we have a lot of documentation. We've spent a lot of time collecting some nice ways, right, of how you might do this kind of hairstyle. You might do card systems, sculpture procedures, that kind of stuff. That information is there. But you got to look at it and break it down, and we're going to talk about that today. We'll look at some ways. We'll be using things like just regular old Dynamesh and sculpture. We'll be using some extraction. We'll be using clay tubes, maybe possibly the strap, curved strap brush. We'll be looking at how to make your own IMM brush, right? Did we look at that already? I think we did look at that. So you can use it mainly for just like a plane. If you're trying to make a plane and generate like strap style hair, then we could use that. So we'll be looking at a couple different methods, and you're gonna have to take that information and go, how am I gonna use this for what I'm making? So what usually gets people into trouble is they don't push the hairstyle far enough. Whether or not they go full sculpture, it just feels like a lumpy, soft hair block out. This is the one thing I believe it's worth the most out of the week. So you want to spend a good amount of time on that, going through the processes, block it out, establish secondary shapes and forms, higher level secondary shapes and forms, and then refinement, right? How to really push that look, right? And as you go through, if you follow that procedure, things will start to show up for you. The other part is the reliance of just sculpture, right? Just using a sculpture mesh, one mesh, it feels soft, it doesn't look right. It just feels like a blockout, right? So one of the ways is to leverage multiple pieces. You might start with a sculpture mesh, but adding a couple little extra pieces on top of that really breaks the silhouette and helps it become a more successful asset. Okay, so again, we'll be talking about that. And the assignment is you take the hair that's on your character and you make that. Some people come back with, well, my character's wearing a hood, a helmet, a hat. Well, if I take my hat off, there's still hair there. Putting my hat on does not make my hair disappear. So you would find either a picture of what hair looks like underneath a hat or a hood, and you would model it that way. Would somebody pull the hair back, put the hood on? Is it going to be messy and scraggly? Maybe you can go with that, right? The other thing is my character doesn't have hair. It's fur, it's this, it's that. I've had a couple emails asking, they've got a goatee and sideburns. Is that enough? Usually not. If it's a big Viking beard, maybe, right? Because there's a lot of layers in the mustache and how it all works together. There might be enough. You got the scraggly hairs. I wouldn't recommend sculpting one of those, though. That would probably be a nightmare in itself. And the hair there is a little different than what's on top of your head. All right, what's different about beard hair and the hair on top of your head? The what? Thickness. Yeah, it's coarser, so it stays away from each other. It's not smooth and flowing, right? It doesn't gather like your hair. Your hair up here is usually thinner, so therefore you can start to see clumps that go the same direction, and you can start building up larger pieces. So instead of doing, let me model, try and get all these strands of hair, you're like, here's 2,000 strands of hair that have clumped together. Let me focus on that shape, right? Beards are not like that. It all gets curly, and it just looks like a Brillo pad in some cases, and therefore you're not going to model that. You probably use something that, there's so much in between space, in between the hairs, that you're just not going to be able to sculpt it the way you would want to. So in that case, what does the assignment tell you to do? Use one of the supplied head busts to model hair for it. Does this mean, I don't like the way my model turned out, so I want to use one of those? No. Your character has hair and it's clearly visible in the reference. You're going to model that hair. Okay? It's part of working that asset to completion. But if your character, again, is full of fur and or bald or no hair, it's completely covered, you're not quite sure what to do, you can then use one of those supplied assets. I've also opened it up. It is not written on FSO this way, but I've opened it up to allowing you to use the head bust supplied in ZBrush. So you have this one, you have a cartoony character, and you've got this weird head here. This guy here could be broken into pieces, and you can grab the head from that. You know, something that you might think about if you don't want to do that. Okay. What's another option? I can't see what's going on with the hair. What am I going to do? Well, then you're going to maybe give them a hairstyle that works for them. You like your model. Okay. Maybe they don't have hair, but you want to give them hair. Find a hairstyle that would work for that asset. Get yourself some real world reference and follow that and generate the hair. And it could, what about Super Saiyan hair? Find a picture of somebody that's dressed up like that for a Comic-Con or something like that. Yeah, exactly. People are like, oh, I found this one that's got like 10 points and they're all just solid things. And I go, that's not enough. That looks like plastic. It doesn't look right. So let's see if they have some real one. Oh, I looked, I can't find the reference. If you can't find an image online of anything that you need to find an image of, I don't think you know how to use the internet, right? It might take you a little bit, or you might have to refine your search terms, but I mean, there's pretty much an image for everything out there. So keep that in mind. So how much is that assignment worth again? It is on FSO, I want to say. Let's see, your final evaluation is 5%. Submission is 10%. That's out of a 100-point scale. That's not right. Whatever it is knocked down to the 20%, it's like 30% out of 100, 40% out of 100 for the week. So about 7 or 8% out of the 20%, something like that. So it's worth, it says 0. Oh no, that's not good. I'll have to go in there and change that. Thank you for letting me know. That might have happened in one of our updates. But it goes hair, then resurfacing, then UVs and normal maps, ear, final evaluation. Actually, the ear is worth less than the final evaluation. We look at your character and the characters and figure out what they're worth, and then your submission. Right? The submission is pretty much spread throughout everything. Did you dot your I's, cross your T's, all that good stuff. Well, thank you for letting me know, Taylor. I will fix that up, but it is a big one. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now. The only thing that shows an actual weight are the things that are graded, right? That's the wrong way to say it. Are the assignments that you are submitting to that get graded. So you take everything for the week, they each have their individual percentages, and that is loaded into the 20% for the end of the week. Now, we have made adjustments. We've been playing around with trying to make things a little more weighted evenly. What do people struggle with? Let's lighten that up. Let's put things that people do better at. Let's bring that up. So some of the weights might not be exact. They might be over at this point. So you might be like, well, it's only worth 20% out of the 100 for the month. Why does it say all of these equal 23%? It's because we might have pushed some values in our grading tools, but it does all equal out. Just know that hair is the biggest thing. Then next to that, really close, almost identical weighting wise would be your resurfacing, UVs, normal maps. If you lump those all together, and you've got the final evaluation of the characters, and then the ear. I think the ear is what, 2% or something out of the whole thing. But yeah, make sure you get that hair done. So let's talk about getting into Modeling the hair. What should we do first? What should you do? What do you think you should do first? Before that. Break it down, but before that. Look. What's out there? How people modeled hair. This will help you break down your hairstyle, because if you don't quite know how to model it and you go to break it down, you don't really how to look at it in group. So you can look at Sweaty Rick Grimes or hair like this and see how they're breaking down as a model. But get out there and do research. Also find reference. Look at reference. Find reference. Search for different angles of the hairstyle. It may not be the exact hairstyle, but the reason you go to a barber shop and you say, or hairstylist and say, I want this style of hair, and they know what to do, is because there are several versions of the same hairstyle. You're looking for your usable reference. Then we want to break down. Once we select, we kind of have a better idea of what we're doing, then we do our breakdown. Okay? You don't start modeling and then do your breakdown like some people did with their prop breakdowns. You want to have that information. The reason we deliver that is so you kind of get used to prioritizing and getting ready for the actual build, taking away the thinking process while you're inside the computer. Thought I saw somebody's hand. Something, is that, no? Looking at like actually, yeah. Sculptors, traditional sculptors, same way, how they're laying in the pieces for that hair. And then what do? They usually build up those pieces in forms, and then they rake it. Guess what you have in ZBrush? A rake brush, right? So that's how they go from nothing to something. But you have to get an understanding of what's going on, and don't just go, oh, hair, and more hair, 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 hair. Wow, hair, look at that hair, look at that hair, look at that hair, look at that hair, right? I have all these pictures of hair. When you find a reference image, look at it and go, how the hell did they model that? What form is this from? Maybe somebody asked that same question. Let me look at it. Okay. Oh, wow, they used an insert mesh brush with it, which we'll look at today, or they did this in Maya or whatever, How do they have it broken apart? Let me see. Oh, this is called a card system. This is more of a plane. It's still kind of a card system, but they're really long, so we talk about that being parts. This is a combination of parts and pieces and sculpture, and you have straight up sculpture, right? But you look at, I don't know, I like the movie, and they use cloth. I think I mentioned that the other day. They use cloth simulation for her hair and for all the other hair. This one's cool. This is a combination of using a large volume with smaller pieces wide, kind of break up that silhouette, right? It's kind of cool. Here we've got a lot of little pieces. This one, what doesn't work, right? Don't look at it and just go, oh, I like that. Look at what you like, what does work, and what doesn't work, because there's something on here that really bothers me. No, but which one? This one? Well, here's the thing, though. I can show you. Well, actually, it's one of the head meshes that, and it's one of the head meshes you get. It was a sculpture I was doing for my dad, and it was him. And his eyes are offset. His nose doesn't have a center line, right? I was talking about that working symmetrically and then not. I actually had to correct it before I gave it to you all as the base model, before I gave it as a thing, because people would probably be like, what the hell's going on there? Nobody's eyes are lined up. My one eye is smaller than the other eye. But yeah, it does feel like this side is melting. I don't know if it's the camera angle. I have one of the models that, based on the way it was modeled and the camera angle, this one here, it looks like, perfect. Yeah, there we go. It looks like the arm doesn't attach to the body, right? So maybe it's the angle, I don't know, but you should find out who the artist is and tell them. So what's up with your model? What's going on with your eyes, right? But yeah, that's cool. No, that's not what I was talking about. What I was looking at was these, like, almost feel like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a petting farm, zoo, and you see like the hair on the pig. There's a real thick, gnarly hair. That's what this feels like. This works up here. Feels like gelled, slick back, chunky pieces, but down here doesn't work. I wish they would have maybe combined the two styles. This hair getting smaller on the side. What about sculpting the side of the hair like this and then using these pieces for the top? What about a combination, right? If you delivered that, I'd be happy. I'd be like, wow, cool, yes, what you're talking about. But if you were to then come back and say, hey, I was just wondering how I did on week 4. What do you think about the hair? I'd look at it and be like, well, you know, next time I might think about not doing this pokey, spiky hair on the side and maybe combining the two methods and kind of breaking up the look. Because I think it's just the scale. It just feels like porcupine-ish, just weird. Right? But overall, when you look at it, it's a nice model. It's cool. It's clean. Right? But I want you to be critical when you're looking at stuff. Don't just be a fan. I love it. Be critical. It's one of the reasons, you know, things like DeviantArt. Man, when I first started teaching here, we told stop using DeviantArt as reference. Stop it. They'd be like, Pikachu model. I love Pikachu. This one's horribly drawn, but I don't care because it's Pikachu. And it was all fan work, and nobody was helping each other become better artists. And it was like, oh, I post my stuff on DeviantArt. I was like, please stop, because DeviantArt has, in the industry, DeviantArt had a terrible reputation for poorly done art and just a bunch of fan people that are loving everything, whether it was garbage or really good. It wasn't a very good platform to grow as an artist. I think it's pretty decent now. I don't really go there. I think Google has every image possible, or search engines in general. So I don't know. This is a really nice asset. This is done with tubes, and then shape, right? Now, if you're getting into chunky hair, are you going to draw one thing and then shape it, and draw another one and shape it 90% like the one you just shaped, and then draw another one and shape it like 60% to the one you just shaped, and then draw another one? No, think smart through this. If you see hair that is relatively the same but shaped slightly different, do one. Find your core shapes. Find the core pieces that define the hairstyle. Make one, sculpt it, shape it, duplicate it, move it, alter. Right? Now you can start working through, instead of trying to rework every single piece of hair that you drop down on that. But this is multiple pieces. It's cartoony, but it works well. This is hard to do, to get all of these little whipping angles and get it to lay right and get everything refined. It is difficult. It takes some time, right? So I would, I'll tell you, take that time. Here, this is a lot of little, I don't know what application you're using, but if I were to say, hey, I'm going to make this, it looks like there's a sphere with another sphere that's kind of mushed together, and then a lot of clay tubes or curved tubes put on top of it, and then the spheres are actually sculpted to look like the hair. Or they took a lot of, maybe they did a sphere and then drew a bunch of tubes on top of it and then dynameshed it all together to kind of get some of that shape. They're using the sphere as the source mesh for the overall volume, and then they're dynameshing everything together so they can pull that easier map, and you don't have a lot of wasted topology stuck together and overlapping. And then they use some separate pieces on top of that to generate a little bit of break, a little bit of free form, a little bit of difference in that asset. So I'll zoom in on, how they're using. You see that little piece kind of tucked in, hanging down, these little whips, right? That kind of stuff just adds so much to the asset. Breaking that silhouette with that sharp transition. You will not get that kind of break in your silhouette with just sculpture, okay? And if you're like, whatever, I'll show you. Let's take a look. This one actually is probably one of the better full sculpted meshes that I've seen. I find it very hard to believe that they did that all through sculpture because of all these overlapping pieces. I think they probably would have had to have overlapped it and then put it together, because it is one mesh. But usually what we see is Gandalf with spaghetti beard. where is it? Like this, where he's got like frozen yogurt or soft serve ice cream on his head. Right? It's nice, but you see how it feels soft. Look at the contrast in the eyes and the lip shapes and all these wrinkles. Then you look at the hair and it kind of feels unfinished. What could have helped it? A couple little pieces that broke the surface and just kind of flicked out a little bit with this to sell it as a little sharper. Now, maybe they're doing this as a game res and they can't spend that type. I mean, if you're trying to bring a normal map, things that whip out, if you don't have the geometry to compensate for those little breaks in silhouette, you're not going to get that information anyway. So maybe the purpose, I'm thinking about it for what I need. I want it to look good on screen. I'm not doing it for games. So for me, this asset is unfinished. I don't like the hair because it doesn't have the points. There's not enough contrast in the shape. There's not enough little whips and breaks in the silhouette. It falls short of being a complete asset. Other than that, I mean, the wrinkles and everything else, beautiful. Look at that anatomy of that arm. Nice. Right? This was something built in Maya. Nice pieces laid. This, just real simple polygon structures utilizing NURBS curves. You'll see that a couple of them throughout here. This again looks terrible because they're just faceted, hard shaded normals. This is the. I always say This Is Us, and that's a very sad TV series, right? But Last of Us, right? This is the jacket I refer to as I've never worn a jacket and had the sleeves get that much wrinkle information in them. I just think they were like, wrinkles, yes, let's make it just cool. And it looks cool, right? But I've got some pretty big jackets, leather jackets, jean jackets, corduroy jackets, and I've never seen my sleeves bunch up that much. But overall, it's cool, right? What kind of wrinkles? Anybody study wrinkles? A little zigzag? No? Fine. But what I do like about that hair is the overall weight and feel. I can feel layers. You can see the breaks in the lines. You can see how the hair is laying. So therefore, it looks nice. I know how that modeling procedure goes. It takes a long time to situate in place. For us, we would probably smooth them once or twice, maybe soften the normals on them so it looks better. Even this, even though it's Post-it notes, it still has a good feel. I can feel the chaos and the organization of the hair. I can feel like it's growing off of the face in a believable fashion. It does not have all of the textures on it, but it still is a nice read. I mean, look at the silhouette on that. I mean, look at it from a distance, it looks good. And it all comes down to them paying attention to what? I keep saying, good core shape, good form, good readability, right? Sometimes it's not about the details. Sometimes it's about just having a good structure, okay? It'll hold. This one here, it's unfinished, but this gives me a lot of insight as to how they're breaking apart the model, how they're shaping the pieces, how they're getting started, right? You can see here the ponytail separate from the pulled back hair. Then it looks like this might be a piece, this is a piece, that's a piece, that's another piece. And then to do the little end, that's a whole nother little piece. So here's the pulled back hair, 1, 2, 3 pieces, right? And again, I'll see this all the time. People just try and sculpt it out of one giant mass. And it looks like someone tried to take Play-Doh and shape hair pulled back into a ponytail. It just does it. It's hard to manage sharp creases and shape changes with a large mass like that. Hopefully you learned that already as you're going through your clothing and trying to figure out some of the props, that it's just hard to get through and handle certain types of shapes when it's one piece. Okay. This was actually a C-shaped curve inside of Maya. This was pre-ZBrush stuff, and it's just extruded along a path. So the profile is a C shape, and then the path is, whatever direction they need, and they just extrude and shape it, kind of deal. Of course, Gandalf. Now, if I were going to do this type of sculpture, none of your hair, I'm gonna say this really clearly, none of your hair is to be attached to your character's head. Meaning, don't sculpt it out of the head. Don't dynamesh it to the head. It should be its own separate piece or pieces. Okay, keep it separate. And I don't ever show it being sculpted from the head. The only time you would do that is if you plan on duplicating the head mesh, sculpting from it, then deleting the face and the rest of the skull and keeping the hair piece that you can stick on the other head. Maybe you would do that, maybe. But I'm going to show you how to use a sphere, super clean, simple, and gets the job done. Okay. And if you don't mind, I don't know if the other classes are going to come in, but if they don't, if I run a little bit long, I'll just keep on going if that's cool. Talk about the submission and stuff like that. All depends. All depends on how we go. Right? But get out there and look, think about it. This really, it might seem like, oh my God, it'll take forever. It really doesn't. You grab some images, you just look at it and go, oh man, how do you think I did that? 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 Well, that's hair systems. I love this image. I love it because when you zoom in on it, you can see the geometry. And if you're like, I made my clothing and oh my goodness, it's so complex. I used like 3 surfaces. And then you look at this and go, holy, look at all those pieces. The ruffles are all separate. The little binding there is all separate. The little ribbons over the sleeve are separate. And then they got the little dots. They're all set. Like it's all just all these different meshes. And you go, whoa. If I want that kind of complexity in my outfits, that's what I got to do. I got to build all these separate pieces. And there is a close-up of the ring. You can kind of see how they did the ring with the gem and everything in there. But I show this, or I had to show, because everyone's like, why don't we use hair systems? I'm like, well, because until you know how to render it, that's what it looks like. It looks like spaghetti, right? It doesn't look right until you get into it. And guess what they have at studios? Specialist hair teams that specialize in hair and hair systems and fur and all that stuff. So a modeler getting into that, it's good to understand it, but chances are in a film studio, you're not going to be doing that. That's going to be somebody else. Now, how do we use modeling and hair systems together? Well, they found that on certain hairstyles, we need to model it first, then extract curve information from that surface, whether we draw it on the modeled surface or we take the model and duplicate the edges. And then what do? We attach a hair system to it. So modeling is still a big part of generating interesting hairstyles with hair systems and fur and all that other stuff, right? So modeling is still, we need to know how to shape and create that. So there is value there. The next thing is, getting into creating hair, whether you can use Maya or you can use ZBrush. I would probably leverage ZBrush for most of this stuff. I think it delivers a shape faster than Maya, but some people, they just, you can get it done in Maya, get it done in Maya. It does work out. I will bring up, just again, showing you Maya, showing you, I don't even know what I'm closing there. It's something, okay. Photoshop, come on, man, close. I know you want, I haven't been in there in a long time. Okay. I think somebody was like, how would you do an eyelash? Who was that? Was that in here? Somebody said, how would you do an eyelash? That's how. You'd make an eyelash. This is just a 3-sided surface. I bent it, and then I would go and I'd place that and start duplicating and moving. If I was going to do it Maya, the ZBrush would be something else. That was you? Okay. Yeah, so, right. It always looks funny. Bring it over here, snap it to a vert, and then start placing it. Why I like that is because and I know people are like, oh, it seems so tedious to hand place it. Yes, but that's really the only way you're going to. Have you ever looked at your eyelashes? Have you ever gone in and really looked at how they're growing? It's not a straight line. They're like, you got 5 that clump over here, and there's a big gap, and then you got ones up this way, that way, one sticking yourself and putting it in the eye, and you're like, oh. Right? So eyelashes, if you want to get that better look and feel out of it, I think hand placing them is just the way to go. That would be me. Oh, hey, this one's got a normal map's all jacked up. Maybe we can find out where that problem is on the body. Right, so this would be the start of a hairstyle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces. Right, and I'm trying to get the establishment of the shapes and the twists and all that, because then I would go in here, and this is NURBS. Again, it's a little bit of an older style, but I can come in here and I can say, you know what, I need this broken up into pieces so I can shape it. Okay, so now I've got that, and where did it detach right there. It takes that and it breaks it into now independent pieces that I can shape. But what do I not have to worry about? Yeah, it's already twisted. It's this big spirally style ponytail, curly wise. So now I've already got that spiral built into the base shape. So I don't have to sit there and try and twist or run all these curves and everything like that. So yeah, it's easier. It's easier to think about the shape, get the core. Even if I was in ZBrush and I wanted all the rolls, I would probably take a cylinder, shape it for the ponytail, and then draw my curved straps around it, instead of trying to grab a curved strap and twist it up. That would be pretty difficult to do. There's another hairstyle on this model. And it's following this, right? So if people are like, well, how would you model that? You can see I've got a main defining curve, and there's my profile. So profile and path, you make your extrusion, and then you start shaping it. So this is what the final pieces look like if done in Maya. You can see layering. And this is heavily dependent on textures because it's just strips of hair. So all the edges, I paid a little bit of attention to the edge pieces, but for the most part, they are all just kind of there. There are some pieces in here just stuck in for the illusion of depth. And then you talk about pieces like this that aren't even full pieces. They're just selling that. So if you get in there, I don't know what it's going to do. Yay. There's not a whole bunch of hair stacked up to give it thickness, right? I'm faking the illusion. When would I need to worry about that? If the hair was moving around and you saw it split and you could see the hairs underneath, that would be a problem, right? But for what we're looking, we just want it to look like there's hair there, right? And this took advantage of mirroring. You'll notice that both sides are very similar to each other. So what you do is you take your 4 hours and you build that, then you group it, you mirror it over, you put a lattice on it, and you shape it and make changes to each piece so there's variance, right? Again, working smart. What a lot of people do is they run out of time because they're like strand, 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 strand. Okay, other side, strand, 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 instead of going and looking for those patterns. Well, this grouping is like that grouping, but slightly longer, a little bit bigger. Let me go and take that, group it together, duplicate it, bring it over their side, and start working with it. That saves you so much construction time. So much. So much. Okay, I'm going to see if we can't setting really quick on this. As you can see, this model has got the heavy craziness there on the maps. Let's see what we got here. Let's see our attributes. It's just got that. That's not even an actual thing. Where is that? Where is that? Where is that? It's not that. But it's not that. It's not that. It's going to be on that. Nope. I don't think it's any of that. What is it? I'm not going to spend too much more time on it. Make sure it does read tangent space. I'll have to find it. It's not there. Color space. Color space. It's not. Come on. I think it's right there. But why aren't you giving me? It should be right here. I believe if you drop that down and you go to raw, it should fix it for that crazy scene being shown up. I don't know why it's got it locked down. I wonder if it's because it's Lambert 1, or sorry, there's not really a normal map applied to it. But that was under the actual image. And you should see right here, it should be there. You should be able to drop that down. So check that and see if that clears it up. Check it. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so getting into creation inside of ZBrush. All right, we'll just talk about a couple methods. Again, there is the video. It's going to go over pretty much everything I'm going to go over now. We'll start with just sculpture, right? So one of the ways of getting started here, maybe, come on. There we go. Okay. All right. So what we want to do in this case, I'm just going to grab the move, right? I would just go in and insert something like a sphere. Symmetry is on. Right, so just get something like that in there. And you can, it depends on how much, what do you want to fight? Do you want to fight, shaping it back in or pulling it out from the hair itself? Large brush. Once you get something there, you start getting the smaller brushes. All right, you do something like that, and then I'd probably switch to Dynamesh. Right, because getting into Dynamesh is going to allow you to start adding volumes, starting to get those shapes that you want. Looks like something's a little bit off there. All right, and you go through the process, cutting it up, shaping it, establishing your basic shapes, making sure that reads well before you start cutting into the surface. So, you start working it that way. And if you wanted larger pieces, I think this has subdivisions on it. Let me just make sure that it does not. No, good. Does it have layers? I don't think it has any layers. No layers. Good. Okay. So now let's say you wanted like bang pieces or something, then you're going to go in and maybe hide that, bring back just the head. I might add a subdivision or two so we have a little bit more geometry to work with. You probably have more geometry subdivisions on it already. Okay, now we're going to use something that's similar to what we've already kind of gotten into. Just going to mask and extract. Oh, not like that. Okay, so, you know, you just do your thing, shape out whatever it is, you'll be following your reference. All right, we're going to use something we did with shirts and body parts and things like that. We're going to do an extraction. This time, though, I might want to keep a thickness. Okay, probably going to keep a thickness because I need something there to work with. I'm going to raise that up a little bit. I think it went down. Terrible. Okay, let's say that works. Accept. Clear it out. Make my brush a little bit bigger. Smooth. And then what do you think I'm going to do with this? Z-remesh it? You're absolutely right. I'm going to go ahead and Z-remesh it because, again, it's the geometry doesn't fit the shape. Z-remesher might help me out. I might want to get a little bit more thickness. So we'll see if this doesn't start giving me some issues. But Z-remesh, bring it down something lower so I have better control. Let's see what we get. I want lower than that. Let's see what we get. Even lower. How low can you go? Man, I must have had a lot in there. And one thing you'll notice is it is getting rid of the rough edges and the weirdness, right? So if I'm like, well, you know what? I don't want to keep hitting this. Let me just bring that down to something 200, or something like that. Get something that I need. All right, and then you start shaping. So remember things like, let's talk about this today, AccuCurve. It's going to help you get a sharper point as you pull. You want to add a little bit of, maybe that's whipping out or something like that. I don't know. Something like that. Soften your mask, invert it, grab your rotate. Clear your mask. Let's bring back that other piece. Because now we're going to just kind of let that work with that one. Got a little bit of funkiness there, but switch to this, bring that forward. All right, and once you get the shape, yeah, you're going to go in and want to add some subdivisions to it to smooth it out. Maybe add a couple little pieces here or there. But this is a great way, working with large pieces. And I'm using the same techniques that we've already talked about. If I want to, ponytail, I can sculpt this into the direction that I need and then add what? How can I make? And this is just establishing pieces. This is not even, you're like, oh, that's easy, I'm done. No, we want to sculpt on it, really get it to look better. I'm just doing this kind of quickly to get you the idea of how you would start going through this process. Okay, so now we'd go in here and we'd say, all right, let's switch to curve 2. It's going to be gigantic. Awesome. That's better. Now, there might be 2 of them there. That's okay. I can get rid of one as soon as I split this to parts. But I want to work on the shape a little bit. So one is size, and then the next one is, of course, when you go into curve and curve functions and then curve modifiers, working with the size here. We want it to start a little thick and then a little bulge and then just going, whatever. All right, we want it a little bit bigger. Whatever you want to do. And then remember, liquefy. Right? You just grab and start pulling that down and it'll elongate the hair piece. Now I'm going to go ahead and set it and forget it. There we go. We've got that on there. But there are the 2 pieces there. So I'm going to want to split this to parts anyway because I want independent control over that. So split to parts, okie dokie. Should be the 2 ponytails. I don't need one of them. Let's just get rid of that. Delete. All right, now we can start working with this one. Oh, that would help if I had the brush. Oh, much damage for that. Maybe they have a foxtail hooked to the back of their head. I don't know. I've seen other things. Pick it up. Nope, getting a little too. All right, there's a ton of stuff we can do with just this method. And even if we're shaping and then going to build on top of it, because it's got, remember I said if it was spiral, this might just be the core shape. This might just be what I'm starting with to then develop pieces off of, right? Because there's nothing, what if I start masking this and doing spiral masks to get that nice spiraled curve? What if I wanted to just mask around it, extract a piece, mask around it again, extract a piece, mask around it again, extract a piece, and I'm just sourcing it for all these different pieces. Yeah, I mean, you can do it. So the question was about Afro style hair and how we would get into that. I actually have some images here of a traditional sculptor going through that workflow. Z-spheres for hair. Getting started with that, drawing a bunch of Z-spheres. Right? This is how you can, like when someone's like, oh, all you do is model hair. Look, here's a bunch of strips of hair that have been converted into actual hair systems. Sculpture, Z-spheres again. Now, it's kind of chunky and feels weird, but it's a good start, right? I forgot I had all these down there. Little strips, little strips. Here we go. Yeah, so one, looking at this image, trying to sculpt that's going to be a nightmare because you see all these little sharp areas. But if you're going to do like this kind of style, then this does have a key shape, and then there's larger lumps, and then there's all the chaoticness within the hair, right? So there, to try and make that look right, difficult. It's going to be difficult to make it look right because you can't just go in and say, let me take this here and come on. There we go. You can't just go in and say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and take I'll take my standard brush and I'm gonna throw some color spray on it. Love color spray. And then we're gonna pick something that's got kind of a chunkiness to it. Lightning bolts. Ooh, that might be neat. Let's take off lazy mouse, make my brush a little smaller. Right, you can't just do something like that. It's good for getting some chaotic lumpiness to a structure, but then you got to go in and refine and push around, right? So all I did here was color spray. What I like about color spray for adding irregularity to a surface is you're getting different intensities at different sizes as you run through a surface. So it's really nice for kind of denting up something or dimpling it up. And then you throw something, just one of the default, if you want to make your own alpha, you know, you can make your own alpha, but you know, it might be a way to Oh, man, oh, wait, oh, oh. Hey, you got to break it if you want to know what the limits are. You do this. Right, that's another thing. Sometimes changing it up and using something that you thought wasn't a good idea to use might actually get you the shapes you want. All right, that might, look at it, it's giving me some nice lumpy structures, and it's some kind of a star, right? And then I can go in there, add more topology, and start adding another layer of detail to it. So that's where I would go, or pick a different hairstyle. There are some hairstyles, crew cuts, shaved head, things like that. It's almost too simple to sculpt. And if we were to run into this on a production, we'd say, we need to get the hair team because we got to figure out something to get this look, right? So change it up, pick something that's a little more complicated, a little more complex as far as the modeling workflow. Because I tell you, man, there's nothing simple about the shapes of those hairstyles. They're just hard for somebody to find the opportunities and to push it that, because it gets to that point where you're like, I don't know where to go with this from here. It takes a lot of geometry and a lot of work. So discussed earlier because of the texture. Yeah, I mean, again, there's going to be hairstyles like fur. It's just easier to use fur, or shaving a haircut, or you know, a lot of people are X-Gen crazy, you know, kind of thing. So now, how do you figure out what's best? If you have the knowledge, you take a sphere and you try and make it look like what you want it to look like. You start small, and once you figure out a workflow, then you apply it to a bigger application. I did that with an amazing movie, and you all should go home and watch it, but Shriya Nam Janayam. You've heard of it? Really good Bollywood flick? No? No? Never heard of that one? You will, because you're going to go check it out. Shriya Nam Janayam is a story about, they don't really have superheroes, but they have her like idols and gods. So there's like a power god and a strength god and this, that, and the other thing. And these people are able to assume the form of that. And this guy gets absorbed into this statue, and he jumps down and he breaks a rock. And the rock goes, and all this dust billows up and it settles. And I'm a modeler, but a friend of mine was like, hey man, you want to do some compositing and dynamic stuff? And I go, sure, I'll do that. Hopefully it works out. So I did the dust for that. And what I did was I created a very small scene, because there was thousands upon thousands upon thousands of particles and fields that needed to run that. So I made a small one, just a little, just to see if I can get things to settle right in the way I would want. We didn't have fluids. I probably use fluids now. The small scale, I said, what do you guys think of this effect? Do you like that? And they said, yeah. I said, all right, cool. Now let me multiply all my numbers. Let me increase the value and how many particles are being emitted and all this other stuff, and got it to work, right? So small, then large, okay? The only time I would tell you to go smaller details and then larger kind of thing, right? So a lot of different things. And then, you know, if it is a ponytail, there's probably some sort of band or you know, anything, a tie in the back, you would want to work with that, and so on and so forth. All right, come on, there we go. All right, and we're starting to get the makings of something I can start sculpting on and working with, right? That's really what's important. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide the other pieces and do just a build up. I don't know why, I'm a fan of demoing the comb over. Not comb over like that, but just a part kind of thing. Let's go ahead and hide that and hide that. And we have this, and I will go ahead and Dynamesh it. I think it's masked off. And Dynamesh that. Now, again, just Dynamesh because I need something that I can build with and work on. All right, so let's go ahead and take Damien Standard. We're going to take off symmetry. Symmetry is not going to work for this kind of hair. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. I'm going to say, all right, we went our part right here. Okay, update Dynamesh. Push that down a little bit further. I'm really going to kind of accentuate that. Okay, let's update that. going to switch to play buildup, brush a little bigger because we're shooting for larger forms. Just start building up something. Go, ice style. All right, update. Update. All right, right now we're just looking for the forms. We're not looking for layering and all that. Update, start smoothing it out. Right. Got here to look like it's growing. Let's pull this one out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and update. Update again. All right, so once you get something like this going, you work the shape, right? It's a little too far back. Kind of looks like the riding a motorcycle all day. Right. Oh, what is that? Push it back. All right, so once you get your structures and you're like, okay, cool, this is going where I like it. All right, now it's ready to start detailing. This is where you start looking at what you've sculpted, because you will get some nice forms that start to show up. So the next phase would be the larger secondary chunky forms, just like you hit the wrinkles, you hit the larger big stuff, and then you get into the smaller stuff. So for this, you can get into something like Damien Standard. And if we wanted to kind of push and pull and get some overlap over here, all right, we need more geometry probably. And then we're going to use lazy mouse. I don't know if I still have that turned on from earlier. All right, got a nice lazy mouse radius. Symmetry is not on. And I'm going to go with Alt. And then I might come up here and push in. All right, so you start looking for shapes that you're like, oh man, I really like that one. Let's go ahead and all right, and you start working those sharper forms in. And then what do you do again? You get yourself more geometry and you start looking in the groups within the groups, the smaller chunks and pieces within those chunks and pieces. And then you're like, But then you said something about doing these little tiny pieces. And I say, yeah, I did say something about that. Here's what you can do. What's really cool is using everything that we've been kind of looking at. I can come in here and make a piece that replicates, right, by using just an extraction. Right, so if I like this, but I want a piece that kind of breaks off the surface, I can go in here. Let's see. I'll just turn lazy mouse on that. And it will be resolution. By the time you get into this, you'll probably have a lot of geometry or multiple layers. All right, but we get into something like that. Subtool, extract, make sure we have enough thickness on that extraction. Oh, okay, we hit accept, we clear that out, we Z-remesh it, we shape it, and now we have this little piece that already fits the main mass that we've made, and we can pick it up off the surface. It's going to look terrible at first, but because you got to go through part of the process is going through cleaning it up. We'll do Z-remesh here, we'll bring that down quite a bit. Z-remesh, let that kind of clean it up a little bit. It doesn't seem to be giving me half of that. There we go. All right, get something you like, come through. Once you have that, start smoothing. Now you can get away with taking this. That's what I got there. I was wondering why I forgot I had AccuCurve on. Hey, AccuCurve. You take that and you pull it off the surface. You let it break. I mean, this is just really quick, but you probably do something that's a little bit thinner. And now you have a nice strand that sits on top of it. You can roll the edge. You can have it break the silhouette. There's a lot of things you can do there to work with it. I mean, this one here is probably too big of a structure, but you saw how I used the same technique for the large bang piece, right? So there's a lot of different techniques here. You know, just think about the tools and use those tools. Make sure that you're understanding what you need to do. You might have to do some testing. You might have to check it out, and then you kind of start putting that into play. Now, detailing, you know, you just start following the same thing we did for the big features. We work, and then we work down and same. We kind of keep going and keep going and keep going. Okay. Trying to think anything like braids, anything like you know, a replicating pattern. Find the replicating pattern, and you might model just a small piece of that, and then start populating the head. Think about making clumps, right? You may just take a piece of geometry, put it down, and make, if you are doing the Super Saiyan kind of hair, it's got all these kind of spiky clumps put together. Maybe you build a tuft of hair that is a collection of like 5 or 6 pieces, and then you start duplicating that and modifying it and planting it on the head and then shaping it from there. That's kind of how we do card systems. When we do cards in Maya, we lay down 5 or 6 cards. You make one, shape it, alter it, duplicate it, move it, shape it, alter, duplicate, move, shape it, alter, duplicate, move. Once you get a nice patch of 5, 6, 7, you group that together and you start duplicating and moving the group. and you shape them all independently. You group those two groups together, duplicate, move them down, reshape all the pieces, duplicate those four groups together, bring them over, duplicate, bring them over, plan them, shape all your pieces, and you kind of start working that way. But if you don't have a plan, you don't have a plan of attack, it's going to be a problem. Last thing before we get into the final submission style of work here, if you're going to start sculpting layering, this is something I like to talk about. It's probably one of the most beneficial things that I picked up when I was learning, you know, getting into the hair and stuff like that. If you're going to start sculpting, just like muscle, the clay buildup is a pretty powerful brush, but you want to start at the bottom and work your way up. This will set your layering. Now, I started at the top. Why? Because I was establishing the form of the hair, the large pieces. But now when you get into the back and you want to get kind of that shorter hair layering look, you're going to do that by one, knowing your hair breakdown will show you the direction of the hair. And you literally just, oh, probably help us on the right piece. You guys are like asleep today. Right, and by doing this, you'll start seeing some chunkier pieces that you can start refining. But you're going to set the layering correctly. It'll feel like it's growing from, you know, here and laying over. If you start doing this way, you've got hair growing on out of hair, right? It just doesn't work. So you start down here, work your way, and you'll start seeing some chunkier things. If you take the Damien standard and push in a little bit more and start refining and getting that kind of gelled hair look kind of deal, right? I'm excited. Are you excited? Yeah. You ready to sit down and drive yourself crazy with hair? Longer hair is usually a little bit easier to do. Shorter hair is a little bit tougher. I did want to, well, it is in the other video, but thinking outside the box here. I'm gonna go back to this head piece. Let's hide everything. There we go. We're gonna clear that. Right? So we can go ahead and just do this all the time. It reminds me of the Event Horizon. I saw that movie by myself while the girl I was dating at the time was doing something else. I was scared shitless. I said shite. I could say the other word. That movie, man, that whole scene with the, yeah, it's old now, but man, being in the theater by yourself, woo, it was scary. You what? You liked it? Yeah, I thought it was great, man. Those little blurps of the stuff going on and the people ripping each other apart. You're like, what? Did I just see that right? Was that, you know? But it was good. Anyway, so another thing here. This was really cool, right? Remember I said let Facebook or whatever platform you're on work for you. You know, I liked a whole bunch of pages, 3D pages, and then up came this one modeling hair tutorial video, and I was like, oh, let me check this out, see what he's doing. And the artist used the topology brush, which the topology brush isn't meant for hair. The topology brush is it's multiple subdivisions. The topology brush is meant for going in, crossing a couple lines and making a surface, right? If you remember, and we get a piece of geometry, you click the button and boom, there's a piece of topology, right? So good for armor plating, things that need to fit on a character, maybe hair pieces, stuff like that. But what was interesting was the way that this artist used it. He went through and he drew in some, oh, did I undo my multiple subdivisions? He went in and drew some lines. All right, this thing, I'm just gonna show you what it did. Because this isn't the one video, and it might be nice if I was thinking about doing hair, right? He did something like that. He drew some major curves that would define the hair. And then I'm going to switch to a different tool, because that'll still be there. There we go. Let's go into right? This took something. Oh, curse you, order of operations. Okay, this took something. You can alter this. I'm just going to use this to make it work, and you made an IMM brush out of it. So if I was going to do hair, I would kick this down to only having 1, 2, 3 lines going in the direction of the hair. So the hair strip, you'd have 1, 2, 3. That allows you to get a little bit of shape, a little bit of an arc as you smooth, but not overkill, right? Because you want it to be a little more simple. Maybe 2 running down the middle. But orientation is key. How it's oriented in the Y is very important. This should work just fine. It is too heavy for what we're going to do, but again, it's going to work. It's going to work for the demonstration. So you take that and you say, create insert mesh brush. Let's make a new brush out of that. Cool. Let's go back to the head. Awesome. Let's go back to, let's see, we got to move topological. We make sure that everything's good, but let's use this brush now. Okay. So what I would do is I would apply this to those curves, right? So if you don't have the curves already, I don't know how it's going to respond to that. Let's see what it does. All right, we've got that. And it's all those curves. And then we go in and we say, all right, let's use our insert mesh brush. But insert mesh, what does it do? It just kind of, yay, insert mesh. Okay. What I want to do is use it as a curve. So I'm going to go in, curve, curve mode. Now I can take it and I can drop it in on these curves. All right, they're all jacked up. The first one, I don't know, let me try and just click. There we go, much better, right? So now it actually applies that, but that's not what we want. We want it to connect together and be smooth. I don't know what it is. I think it's triparts. I'm going to try and fix it through the options, but I would just make a dummy curve as your first one somewhere that you know you're going to delete the geometry from. But basically what you do is you come down in here and you go into, what do we have? Do we have that? Is it curve mode? Did I turn on curve mode? Stroke, curve mode, brush, modifiers. Okay, and here's the curve modifier. So we're going to take off triparts. Triparts you'll learn later on. I don't know if I talked about it earlier, what triparts are. Triparts are, you make a shape, a specific end, a specific start, and a specific middle. You make them polygroups in that specific manner, and when you draw it, it knows the first part, fills in the middle part as long as you draw the curve, and then finishes it off with the end part. So for cabling and stuff, really, really powerful. But for what we're doing, we don't need it. We go in here, we're going to turn on a couple things. We're going to say weld points, max bend angle. Let's go ahead, curve resolution. Let's just bring that up. Let's see. I'll leave that somewhere in there. Okay. And now we should, awesome. We should, I don't know if I have it oriented right, but you should be able to just take it, stretch, curve res, 25, tripartite formation. Still, it's trying to do it. It's trying to do it. Aren't you respecting the stretch? Let's bring up a little bit of overlap. Let's bring up the max angle. Awesome. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's just not wanting to do it for me today. I don't think the orientation, it looks like it's trying to, it's doing something funky there, the way it's laying those on there. Looks like they're slightly rotated. I might have rotated in there, but if you set up your orientation right, you're going to get them to line up, and it's going to create a long strip for you that you can then continue to work with. I'm not going to fight it. But you go back to whatever you're making the plane from. You would take this, adjust it, make a couple that you want. You can do this with any, you can make an actual piece. If you wanted more angular hair, you could make an angular piece, lop off the top and the bottom, and use that the same way, and turn your curves and stuff on. Okay, so that's pretty neat, because here's, just like in Maya, using a tool that's built for a specific thing, but using it in a completely different fashion, just really cool that you can do that. As long as you don't cross them over, you're not going to generate any topology. But I thought that was a pretty cool thing. All right, so a couple different ways. Watch the other videos. There's a ton of information about creating hair, but first find the type of hairstyle that you want to create and go from there. Okay. Now let's talk about getting ready for the submission, and then we'll be finito. The templates, the Maya templates, you will be bringing everything into a Maya template. They are different online versus campus, but they work the same. There is a layer that says hide before saving. Hide it before saving. There are other layers that tell you what assets to put on what layers. Make sure that you're paying attention to that. But the biggest part of the puzzle is making sure that your asset is hitting the 4 million and under poly count with everything. Okay, so all their parts and pieces, everything needs to be under 4 million. So I want to talk quickly about how do we manage that? How do we make sure that that happens? So we'll just bring up that monster guy. It works good. Because he's got multiple pieces. So we'll use him. Oh, I guess everything is hidden for the most part. Okay. So you'll have your total poly count at the top. Now that's active points or total points. It's talking about points. It's not really a true to form resolution. So if it says 4 million, it might be 6 or 7 million, right? So we want to take a look at that. But you can also hover over your pieces. First thing is know what you need to actually alter. Some things don't need to be changed. The flip-flops are pretty low res. They're 54,000 per flip-flop. So we got what, 108 roughly, 110,000 for both of those. I could decimate the base of the flip-flop if I wanted to. That would help, but everything else is fine. That's a low target. I'm going to look at the fingernails. Okay, so they're 15,000 a piece. There's 20 of them. Actually, less than that. He only has 3 fingers. You know, so whatever that is. I could nickel and dime it and pull geometry away from those, from decimating those as well, but those aren't my highest target. Things like clothing that you've subdivided quite a bit. The hat itself is 29,000. The bill is 1,200. That little nub is 1,300. That has the same amount of topology as that whole bill there. We have the character. This is the character after the procedure we're going to do, but the character itself is 3.4 million, right? So the character with all the teeth and everything, he might be just over. And then you add the props and the hair and everything, and he's definitely over. Okay, I've had a 33 million polygon character submitted. I didn't even wait for mine to open. I tagged it with a 0. I said, clean up your scene and get back to me, right? Because it takes a long time to open a scene like that. So, you know, I would, make the person, they got a deduction and all that for all of that stuff. But it's something that we all do. We all have to take the time at the end of a scene and clean it up and make it what it needs to be. So what are our options? What are the things we want to look for when we're looking to reduce poly count? What do you think you'd start looking for? Adam always does this stretch where I just lay his back. And he's like, I can't even do it. I start to shake. What can we look for? Stuff. You're right. How can we start reducing? What? Subdivisions. You might have way too many subdivisions on something. Find something that looks good and delete the rest. That's a great way, right? So if you've got 8 subdivisions, maybe you only need 5.
I know that there's a
Decimation
decimation master.
master.
Z-plugin.
Yep, Z-plugin Decimation Master. We use that, I believe, to go out of ZBrush for the resurfacing procedure. We decimate it. That's a great way. I wouldn't recommend doing that on everything unless you like the hair, decimate it because it's going to be pretty heavy. Especially if you sculpt the entire thing, it's going to be pretty heavy. Yeah.
There's a lot of smooth areas on there.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't need a lot of quality around the stuff. Try to polygon, like on the smoother area, leave more on the.
Yeah, so I mean, playing around with your resolutions, this has a lot of detail, it needs more, but this over here is a simple shape. I don't need 12 million, right? So you can start looking for opportunities of simplification of your topology. If you can do it, really, if it's the same piece and you want to start taking it apart, I'd probably recommend Decimation Master because it'll do that kind of for you. But when you're looking at parts and pieces, there are things that I see and I'm like, why is that so heavy? It's a sphere, you know? That can be lightened up. Whether you Z-remesh it, Z-remesh is a great way to kind of target a better poly count and let that rip through something that maybe is dynameshed at a super high resolution or has multiple subdivisions. You're like, well, no, you pick about 10,000 instead of 110,000 and let it do that. So that's a great way. What's another thing? Yeah, I met this girl at a bar a long time ago, and she said, you know, when you're talking to people, if you want to throw them off, just do deep knee bends in front of them while you're talking to them. Just look them square in the face. Just don't say anything. Just see what they say.
Into a power.
Ah, power stance. I don't know what your power stance would be.
T-posing.
T-posing? Yes. Have you ever seen Skater Matt? It's I don't even know if the website's up anymore, but it was literally a model that's in T-pose, and the person animates, and he's like, eBay, I'm gonna search for it. He's got two keyboards. He's like, I'm gonna search for the moon, you know, and he's like, moon, 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 and it's all T-pose. It never changes from T-pose. It's hilariously stupid. So what else are we looking for? I'm just trying to talk, maybe multitask the brain and something pop in there. The which one?
Like the whole body is split, like the face is the head by one, and then your body is like the other one, because the body doesn't have much of the.
Okay, so yeah, getting into that playing around, right? Separating parts that don't need to be connected, because to get the right amount of topology in the head, you've got to up-res that, but then now the whole body suffers from that. What about, let's go a little bit further. What about if we separate areas we don't see and delete them? Yeah, if you don't see it, you might only need the arm up to here. For this class, right? Purpose dictates process, but for this class, we're trying to, so if you're like, man, I get it all the time, my character's at 5 million, what do I do? And I go, and when I see it, I go, send me the file, I'll look at it if there's time. And I go, whoa, man, you got all your shirts are double-sided. All your clothing is double-sided. You never see the inside. So you've got 5 million polygons just on the inside of your shirt. You got a 10 million poly shirt. So how would we delete that stuff? We'd go in and we'd mask off the inside area. If you already have a poly group, because of the way you built it, you just grab that poly group and get rid of it, right? Grab the poly group, invert, remember hiding, invert, geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. And you'll be like, holy smokes, I just cut that garment in like a half, at least a third, because you're gonna have the edges, so it won't be exactly a half, but that's a great way. Get rid of stuff we don't see. We don't need it, get rid of it. This hat right here, if again, look at the bottom of the hat. It's got, there's a whole piece underneath there. I don't need that. I can mask that, Control W, make it a poly group, delete hidden, get rid of it. As long as I don't see it, we don't need it. Another thing that happens is sometimes as people are modeling, they end up with these pieces inside, just hidden, they forgot about, and that's still counting towards the poly count. So take a look at your surfaces. Like I don't need two bodies anymore. So I would save it, project before submission, project for submission, or what I would call it, dirty scene, clean scene, right? And I would save it with all the junk in it before I did anything. That way, if anything forbid to happen, I can always go back to the raw scene and rework things or take things from it. But if you've got duplicates, get rid of it. You don't need it, right? So there's gonna be a lot of places. This will make it, as soon as I take this and decimate it, it kicks it down. It literally gets rid of 2 million polygons, right? And some, just from decimating. So that process looks like selecting the asset, going to Z plugin, remember decimation master, process current, let it do its thing, leave the defaults are fine. It should work as you go through your pieces. It might say online, decimate everything, but I'm telling you right now, you don't have to. Sometimes, the reason I'm saying you don't have to is just because it says that you can decimate everything, it's not going to destroy your shape. Some people go, oh no, I need to decimate more and more and more. And they decimate like to 80% of whatever the original poly count is, they lose shape. It starts to hurt the effectiveness of the model. But all we want to do is make sure we hit that 4 million poly count, right? It's going to include all your stuff. So evaluate what your props are and what your stuff are. If you're way over or way under, it's okay to contact me and say, hey, I don't know what else to do. If I've got time Monday, I will definitely, before the submission, take a look at it and see what's going on. See if there's any other options. So it looks like it did that. Now we go Z plug in and we just say decimate current. It's going to go through and decimate. Okay, and you can see that we went from 3.4 to 1.37. Okay, this one's an extra one. We don't need it, so we're going to go in there and we're going to say delete that. That's going to help. We go through and get rid of anything we need, and then we're ready to prep it for submission, getting it out of the program and into what we need. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to merge all these down. All right, make sure everything's visible. It is easier to make sure everything's visible, and then go to merge and say merge visible. And what it's going to do is it's going to trick you, and you're going to be like, nothing happened. No, put it up here. You have now a merged body, which is all the pieces put together. You can, if you want, you can export every piece one at a time, and then import them all in one at a time. All right. Or merge it. Don't Dynamesh. Be careful. Don't Dynamesh because it'll fuse everything together. But I just go and now export it. Okay. Export it out. Put it where you need it. I'd probably just call it asset 1, character 1. Save it. Spit this out. And then we're ready to start building our final template scene. Yes? You could. I just don't need to. I've only it should do it. I don't think it'll have. I usually decimate single pieces, but there is a decimate all. But if it's all one piece, it should decimate it. We could see what it'll do. Might work out real nice, might not. Let's try it. But once it's decimated and it's put like this and you export it, all you're going to do is everything that you know about a clean scene in Maya, that's what you're going to do. You're going to take the asset, you're going to import it. You're going to have your boxes that says asset 1. Okay? You're going to bring it in. You're going to raise it up to the floor so the feet are touching. You're going to move the pivot to the feet. And you're going to scale it up to what it should be, right? In comparison to the other things, right? Just kind of visually pleasing that way. And then you're going to move it to where it needs to go, wherever the box is that it needs to be in. And then you're going to freeze transforms, delete history. Don't center pivot unless it's a secondary object or something like that. Prop, you center your pivot, right? Just take care of your pivots in a logical way. Then you're going to take that asset, all of its pieces, group it, put it on a layer. There's a layer in there that tells you what layer is for what. Then you're going to import the resurfaced head with the normal maps on it. And you're going to move it to where it needs to go. Right next to the head is preferred, but I think in some cases, I can't remember what class it still reads on top of. Doesn't matter if you put it on top of that, it's going to be on a layer anyway, so I can hide the asset when needed, but I usually move it to the side so I can gauge likeness, how well you did with your geometry. If you use one of the supplied head busts for hair, there's a box in the front that you would move that asset to, and then your ear asset would go where it needs to go inside of the box. You delete history, freeze transforms, optimize scene size, do whatever you need to do, resource your maps, make sure it works, and then ready to submit. Please name all your assets as well. Poly surface monster file is not naming it. That is just using the namespace from the import, right? It'll actually say monster scene poly surface 16, right? That's, I think, is how it would name it, whatever the poly surface is. Be careful with stuff like that because I don't really know what it's going to do if you were working on the job and you did sloppy scenes like that. It's just, you're not actually naming. So name it how you need. All right, so we're gonna decimate and then I'll tell you a couple other things. So I'm just gonna go plug in. See what it does. I can't see that going really fast because it's got a lot to work with. It's surprising me. Watch it just go and explode. The ear file, I want to talk quickly about the ear. There's 2 videos to follow. One's in 2009. I don't care. I made it. I love it. Man, if you look at the interface we had to work with, it was gross. But the modeling process itself is a great process. I like it. It's what I grew up on. And then we have an updated version that follows a slightly different process, but still delivers a good asset. With both of them, once they're done with the video, they're not done. James always, he's the one that did the second video. He's always talking about, and now you would shape it. Don't forget you shape it, shape it, shape it, shape it, shape it. What happens is people just stop and go, oh, I'm done with the video, I'm done. And it looks like an ear biscuit. Like, biscuits for dogs, kind of have some detail, but not really. That's what it ends up looking like. It's this flat thing. It doesn't look like an ear. You got to use deformers and soft select and move and shape it into an ear that's got cartilage and is at an angle and looks like it actually captures sound and push the anatomy in. So just want to mention that if you do a really good job, but it's not shaped further, it's probably going to get a B. If there's some mess ups in the topology and it's not shaped, it's probably going to be a C, so on and so forth. So if you want that A on that asset, shape it. Okay, let's go ahead and decimate current. Let's see what happens. Oh!
God.
Well.
It's versus a Picasso.
They went into abstract land. Well, don't do that. Maybe it's just a scene. I don't know. That's a good way to end the class, right? Okay, so if something happens, please keep me posted with what's going on in your life. If there's an emergency, I'm not going to say yes to everything. We do not offer extensions on week 4, but if there's an emergency, I understand. Please make sure you keep proof, all that good stuff. If FSO isn't working, I'll submit it tomorrow. I'll send them an email and wait 24 hours before I get, no, your file's not there. You need to get it to me. How else can you submit if and only if FSO isn't working? What else can you do? What? Email the whole file? No, it's never going to come through. So what would you do? Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, something like that. I did have a OneDrive fail last month where the file was too big and it gave me can't download this, it's too big. That's because their scene was a mess. It had way too much topology. I never got their final, right? Another way you can do it is a flash drive. I will give it back. I don't need any more flash drives, but some people are like, oh, what do I do? Hey, your internet goes out. What do? You go to McDonald's. You use their internet because it's free, okay? There is really no excuse other than an emergency or you just didn't get it done that this won't be submitted, okay? So I don't want to see emails. I really tried, but it didn't work, and my internet went out. Well, you better get in your car and get somewhere, right? That's what you would do on the job. That's what you do for me. With that being said, don't just hit it, crush it. Have fun, learn as much as you can. My door is always open. Please come see me. I like animation. I like anything that deals with 3D. You want to drive RC cars, that's cool. You want to fly drones, that's cool too. I'm selling a Phantom 4K. Sorry, I had to put that tag in there. Everybody's looking for one. But yeah, have fun, get it done. If you have any questions, there's no other class, so you might as well come up and ask me why disconnect. Cool? All right, guys, have fun, take care. It's been a pleasure. You guys were the most participation in my shirt days, really happy. Online, you guys have fun. Let me know. I'm going to be really busy over the weekend. I'll try and get to as many, emails that come through, but it may be Monday morning. So just make sure that you are working with each other and helping each other out. And Taylor, thanks for helping. I can't remember her name. Oh my goodness. But she said you were a really big help. So that's awesome. I appreciate you jumping in like that, helping somebody. Autumn. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, cool. Y'all take care. I'll see you in the future.
I'll see you around.